Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. No spin, no bias and no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton Tonight. After a royal tour filled with controversy, Prince William gave a sincere and historic speech in Jamaica last night, addressing Britain's colonial past.
I want to express my profound sorrow. Slavery was abhorrent, and it should never have happened.
But could he have reasonably said anything that would appease Meghan-inspired far-left commentators and the BLM brigade? Well, I'll argue that the Duke of Cambridge did Queen and Country proud in my digest next and was correct not to apologise. Then at 9:30, Nigel Farage is here to give his verdict and answer whether Britain should pay Jamaica's slave reparations. I'll also get the verdicts imminently of my superstar panel. Tonight, the Conservative commentator Dominic Samuels, Tory former London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey and author and journalist Amy Ncaa. Does Zelensky have a hope in hell of delivering peace? Ukraine's former Prime Minister and a key ally of the president, Alexei Honchuruk, lays out what he would say to Putin as he takes up arms to defend the country he used to lead. Fascinating interview from Kiev at 9:20. And at 10, as Boris formulates an action plan to stop Russia with other NATO leaders, should the West entertain the idea of aiding Putin's opponents who want to assassinate him? Now, she's received death threats from activists supporting trans athlete Leah Thomas, but Olympic swimmer Sharon Davies won't be intimidated as she battles to save women's sport. I can't wait to have her here with me live at 10:20 tonight. 2 years on from the first lockdown, why won't the figures responsible admit the true costs of this grave mistake? Social media activist Zuby is uncancelled at 10:40. And as Scotland's mask hypocrisy is laid bare, with the elite getting to breathe freely while the public suffer, is Nicola Sturgeon trying to keep the pandemic going by continuing to muzzle her people? That's coming up in the Media Buzz at 10:30. You'll also get your first look at tomorrow's newspapers throughout the show and brand new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass revealed before the night is out. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. Just one thing first, though. England football captain Harry Kane is predictably starting to be asked difficult questions regarding the Qatar World Cup. Now, is that fair? Well, usually I'd actually say not. Let's keep politics out of sport. But given Kane and his team have decided to put themselves at the heart of controversial and political issues by backing the Marxist BLM organisation and continuing to take the knee before games, It's actually no wonder journalists are asking how that position stacks up with happily playing in Qatar, where homosexuality is outlawed.
Many England fans won't feel comfortable with going to Qatar, so won't go.
So the thought of not having some of our fans there will be a real shame, and I hope and we hope that Qatar do everything possible to make sure everyone feels safe and comfortable.
But Mr. Kane, Qatar will not be changing their barbaric rules. So when he was asked by ITV News whether the country, Qatar, should be hosting the tournament at all, Kane quite unbelievably brought the questions back to problems here in the UK.
England's players continue to take the knee before games and could join other countries with collective action in Qatar. But would Kane rather it wasn't being held there at all?
There's a lot of countries who have different issues, and you saw with us in the summer with in the Euros final. You know, we have our own issues that we still need to try and resolve and try and move forward with. So I think the important thing is that it's going to be in Qatar, and it's shining a light on that country.
Mr. Kane, I think you're a good man, but comparing the appalling government-sanctioned human rights abuses in Qatar to a few rogue fans in England is simply wrong. My superstar panel are here shortly. Let's take a first look at them. The political commentator, Dominique Samuels, the former Tory London mayoral candidate, Sean Bailey, and the author and broadcaster, Amy Ncaa. By keeping us up to date with the news headlines tonight is Tamsin Roberts.
Dan, thank you. Good evening from the GB newsroom. NATO and G7 leaders are ramping up lethal aid to Ukraine. Speaking after emergency meetings in Brussels, the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, said military kit will be provided in the quantity and quality needed so the country can defend itself against Russia.
Ukraine is not alone. We stand with the people of Kiev, of Mariupol, of Lviv and Donetsk. And as President Zelensky has said himself, the people of Ukraine will prevail, and Putin must fail, and he will fail.
P&O Ferries has admitted breaking the law when it sacked 800 workers without notice last week. Chief Executive Peter Hebblethwaite acknowledged trade unions should have been consulted first when he was questioned by MPs. He also told them the new crews are being paid below the UK's minimum wage on international routes, but he insists it is legal.
We thought long and hard about the routes to this, and we did consider every single option available to us, and we concluded that every single option available to us would result in the closure of P&O.
Jurors have been shown footage of the moment the man accused of murdering Sir David Amess was arrested. Prosecutors say 26-year-old Ali Harbi Ali stabbed the MP in his constituency in Essex last October. Ali, who denies preparing terrorist acts and murder, was tackled to the ground by two plainclothes officers.
Get it down! We got him. Right, search him. Right, mate, at the moment you're under arrest for murder, all right? If you'd like to say anything, in my arm, your defence, if you do not mention when mentioned something which you later on in court, anything you do say may be given as evidence. Do you understand me?
Donald Trump is suing his former opponent in the presidential election, Hillary Clinton. The ex-US president claims she and several others, including former British spy Christopher Steele, tried to rig the 2016 vote. In a lawsuit filed in Florida, Mr. Trump alleges there was a conspiracy to spread a false narrative that he was colluding with Russia to win the election. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now let's get straight back to Dan.
It was never going to be enough, was it? No matter how sincere, genuine and historic Prince William's comments were on Britain's colonial past and the Crown's shameful slave trade pre-1833 during his visit to Jamaica, The country's political elite, who have been doing everything they can to humiliate the second in line to the throne, were not going to be appeased. To remind you, first there was this snub to William's wife Kate by a Jamaican political leader the moment the Duchess of Cambridge stepped off the plane. Then there was this awkward humiliation by Jamaica's Prime Minister, who ambushed the couple with a highly politicised speech about becoming a republic, as they had to lamely listen on and nod.
Jamaica is, as you would see, a country that is very proud of our history, very proud of what we have achieved, and we are moving on. And we intend to attain in short order our development goals and fulfill our true ambitions and destiny as an independent, developed, prosperous country.
And then there's the reprehensible Meghan Markle-inspired far-left commentators, like a hagiographer Omid Scobie, who tried to claim that this moment, let's take a look at it, where Kate and Wills greeted Jamaican fans who had gathered behind a wire fence to watch a football game, were somehow steeped in colonial oppression. The truly toxic UK arm of the Marxist Black Lives Matter organisation even posted this tweet saying, "It's giving human zoo, #Royal Tour Caribbean." That's, of course, complete and utter baloney. There was absolutely no reaction when Raheem Sterling, who the royal couple had invited to the tour, did exactly the same thing. But the hardcore Jamaican Republicans, who are on a campaign for Britain to pay historic reparations, always intended to ambush this visit. It's just a shame that the race baiters who dominate discussion in 2022 have brought hook, line and sinker into Meghan's pack of lies to Oprah Winfrey, suggesting the modern royal family is racist to suit her narrative. So I'm giving you that backdrop before I show you Prince William's speech in Kingston last night. He didn't apologise, he couldn't and he shouldn't, but here's what he did say.
This week, with the International Day of Remembrance of the Victims of Slavery and the Transatlantic Slave Trade, I strongly agree with my father, the Prince of Wales, who said in Barbados last year that the appalling atrocity of slavery forever stains our history. I want to express my profound sorrow. Slavery was abhorrent, and it should never have happened. While the pain runs deep, Jamaica continues to forge its future with determination, courage, and fortitude. The strength and shared sense of purpose of the Jamaican people, represented in your flag and motto, celebrate an invincible spirit.
So as you can see there, William is a thoroughly modern future king, aware of Britain's complicated history. In the most trying of circumstances, he has done the Queen proud in Jamaica. Sadly, the country's politicians, aided by the BLM brigade and far-left media, have acted disgracefully. But to respond now, my superstar panel. The political commentator Dominique Samuels, the former Tory London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, and the author and broadcaster Amy Ncaa. Dominique Samuels, am I wrong? Do you think Prince William should have apologised?
No, I don't think he should have apologised. And I think even if he did personally apologise for the events that occurred, I don't think, like you said, it would have been enough, because I think the aim of, you know, the BLM brigade and people like Omid Scobie, the aim of it was to humiliate Prince William and Kate, especially on the back of allegations of racism within the royal family associated with Meghan Markle. But I think that, you know, if the people of Jamaica want to remove the Queen as head of state, as they've said they intend to do, I think, you know, that's fair enough.
Absolutely.
We have more pressing issues to deal with. But I think the issue with always bringing up slavery in association with Jamaica whenever we have communications with them is it can often be used as an excuse to take the blame away from the politicians who have ultimately failed their people again and again, even its current government in Jamaica, and it's an excuse to look away from the real issues. My fear is the more we distance ourselves from Jamaica and countries within the Commonwealth, we allow countries like China, who have far more nefarious intentions, to sink their tentacles in, as they have in Jamaica for very many years now.
Very good point.
I think it's that Jamaica wants to distance itself from us for a simple reason that I agree with you, the politicians have acted disgracefully because they have it in their power to sort this situation with reparations. And this whole trip has
So can I just clarify, Amy? You want Britain to pay reparations to Jamaica. Do you know that what that would open up?
Something that people always forget is that slave owners were paid compensation up until 2015. We were paying for them to be compensated for the abolition of slavery, whereas the slaves themselves, the families, the descendants of slaves, have been paid nothing. So I do believe...
So you believe in reparations. OK, because Sean Bailey, your party's former leader, David Cameron, on a visit to Jamaica in 2015, ruled out reparations altogether. Do you agree with his position?
It's two things I'd say. Firstly, I'm Jamaican, my family's Jamaican, and we regularly have this conversation, as many black people...
I'm Jamaican too.
Good for you. regularly have this conversation about reparations, about should Jamaica have its own head of state. So it is very, very important that what William did to acknowledge slavery, to see it happen, to treat black people like it didn't happen, just keeps the argument going and allows BLM some power. The reason they've leapt on the back of this, because they know if this is resolved, this is some kind of reunification of spirit and we can go forward together, they become irrelevant. That is why they leapt in like this. Prince William, what he did was absolutely necessary.
But
and I'd say to people, one second, I'd say to people at home, if you think slavery is irrelevant today, ask yourself why you're so proud of this country. You're proud of this country because of its history. Unfortunately for Jamaica, a large part of its history is slavery and needs to be addressed. I met Andrew Holness before he was the Prime Minister, and he has a great ambition for Jamaica in many areas. And a big part of his ambition is for Jamaica to lead itself in every facet of its life, and that means also being its own head of state. So it's probably the right...
But that's fine. Host a referendum. Make it democratic. Yes, of course. But I think humiliating Kate and William in the way that he did yesterday was very wrong.
But hold on. There's no way Kate and William's team would have said to them there's going to be parts of this trip that are going to be sticky. This is likely to happen. If you ask Andrew Holness, he was not there to humiliate anyone, but he has to make a point for the people of Jamaica.
Well, he has to make a point for his political career.
Of course he does, but that's his job. Don't act surprised when
I will act
politicians
surprised,
say
actually,
to their own benefit.
because most leaders of the Commonwealth understand that the royals try and stay out of politics and they will not humiliate senior royals who simply, Sean, cannot respond politically. Kate and William could not respond.
I don't think that he deliberately set out to humiliate anyone, and I don't think that's what he did. He had a sharp conversation, which is why what William has done and Kate has been so impressive, because they've gone there and faced it, and he said he felt like...
I agree with you on that. Amy Ncaa, I've taken all sorts of incoming today, but I absolutely stand by my comments. Isn't it disgraceful that this pack of lies from Meghan Markle is being weaponised in Jamaica to aid the cause of the Independence Brigade and the Reparations Brigade?
I think the reason that you've taken a bit of flack over it is because it didn't exactly take Meghan to convince Jamaica of anything. I think...
well, they're using her comments. The main campaigners are literally using her comments in their campaign.
But to me, that was Jamaica coming back in after an argument's finished and going, and another thing, Meghan Markle. I think that was just the cherry on the top of the treatment of the Jamaican people over the years and the legacy of...
and do you think that's right, given that we have now categorically been able to prove that she told lie after lie in that interview?
How can you categorically prove she told lie after lie?
Well, because a lot of the things that she said were flat-out lies, many of them provable. For example, we got married before we got married. No, you didn't.
Even you yourself have said that probably someone in that room made a comment about what that child was going to look like, and it's a matter of context whether that was offensive or not. There's plenty of evidence that there was treatment of Meghan Markle whilst she was here in the UK that constituted racism.
But Dominique, I have a real issue with this because I'm not, by the way, naively saying that it is only because of Meghan Markle that the Jamaicans feel this way. But what I am saying is that this was always the nightmare scenario for the royal family, the fact that Meghan's comments to Oprah were going to be taken out of context and used by Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, it's inevitable because everyone around the whole world heard about it. Millions and millions of people watched the interview. I think Kate and William probably knew that Meghan's comments were going to have an impact on their trip. And I just think it's really sad. Again, I think I do agree with a lot of what Sean said there. But at the same time, the thing with Commonwealth countries and Jamaica, we do have a shared history, whether that's, you know, wholly negative or not. And I think that part of it is our fault that there is some ill will towards us, obviously because of slavery, but secondly because when we entered the European Union, we sort of just said bye-bye to all those countries that we had a relationship with.
We did. We let down a lot of Commonwealth
probably why they feel so bitter as well.
Absolutely. Sean, I just want to put this Meghan point to you, because do you understand my point that absolutely we need to discuss the history of the British royal family and the British state? But for Meghan to allow her critics to paint a picture of the current royal family as racist, when, by the way, we're talking about the Queen, we're talking about Prince Charles, we're talking about Prince William, that is disgraceful.
Look, the fate of Jamaican people, if they become a republic or not, is far bigger than even Meghan and all her whining. It'll have no impact on what people of Jamaica do. They have a plan, they'll carry out their plan, and Jamaicans will get what Jamaicans want in the context of Jamaica.
Well, I hope it's put to a vote.
But here's the thing. BLM and some of the toxic effects it's had inside the black community and outside are funded by these types of comments. Meghan may have placed these down to cause a problem. I would say to everybody, we need to move forward together. And it means that we mustn't have one or two individuals weaponise things, Americanise all of our conversations about race and then use them against us. Because unless somebody is speaking in this space who's trying to resolve these issues, then we shouldn't listen to them at all. There'll always be differences of opinion, but we have to move forward as adults.
Good point. Final word to you, Amy, quickly.
I just think the reaction shows the mood of the nation.
What nation? Jamaica
our
or the
nation,
UK?
Jamaica. The whole world's reaction shows that we aren't happy with the way the Caribbean legacy has been handled. We're not happy with the monarchy at the moment, and I think this has been a massive own goal for the royal family. And
no, I think that's rubbish. I think you're talking about a very small minority of people in Jamaica. In fact, a vast majority of Jamaicans, including, by the way, those who absolutely believe in the Republic, were delighted to have William and Kate in their country.
That's not what
and wanted
history
to treat
books will
them
remember
with
from
respect.
this moment.
No, I agree with you. And I agree with you. And that's the whole point of what I'm saying tonight. That's because of how this has been weaponised by a far-left media.
You've got a few people who are big on social media who've made this what it is.
Indeed.
For the people of Jamaica, this is a much more serious thing that they'll remember positively.
OK, great to hear that. Sean Bailey, Dominique Samuels, Amy Ncaa, my superstar panel, they're here all night. Now, coming up, we're going to continue discussion about this. GB News star Nigel Farage will give his verdict shortly. But next, Ukraine's former Prime Minister, a key Zelensky ally, joins me to lay out what he would say to Putin as he takes up arms to defend the country he very recently used to lead. This is going to be a fascinating interview. Stand by, we're crossing live to Kyiv next.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Nigel Farage and Sharon Davies on the way, but first, breaking tonight, Ukrainian forces have given their country a huge morale boost by claiming to destroy a Russian warship. The Navy boasted online about blowing up Russia's Orsk in the Ukrainian port city of Berdyansk. Footage shows the wrecked landing ship billowing out huge plumes of smoke as jubilant Ukrainian sailors shouted, "The occupiers are burning well." That attack comes a week after Russia celebrated docking the Orsk in Ukraine, their first ship to anchor in the country. Well, I'm delighted to say that joining me now live from Kiev is a man who has gone from leading Ukraine to fighting for it. Oleksiy Honcharuk is the former Ukrainian Prime Minister who served under Volodymyr Zelensky in 2019 and 2020, making him the youngest PM in the country's history, aged just 35. He was also a hugely respected lawyer before leading his nation. A key ally of the battle-worn Ukrainian president, we're asking what he would say to Putin as he now personally takes up arms to defend the country he used to lead. And Oleksiy, it is such a pleasure to have you. This is just the most incredible story. 2 years ago, you were Prime Minister. Now you've taken up arms to defend your country without any military experience. Talk to me about what that transition has been like.
Thank you very much for your attention, friends, in this very complicated moment of our country and I believe in the world. There is now nothing special in my story, I believe, because a lot of people, a lot of Ukrainians, millions of Ukrainians now are fighting against Russian invaders and occupants to protect our land, to protect our homes. Russians expected to capture, to take control over our capital, to kill our president in the couple first days of this war. And they failed because our military forces are strong. And our forces already killed like thousands Russian soldiers and destroy a lot of their military technique, and it's not the end. But Russians changed the tactics, and now they're acting like a terrorist organization. They are fighting not against our military troops. They are fighting against our civilians, against our women and children. So that's why actually Ukraine was asking to the Western leaders to provide us some support and to protect us from a sky, to help us to protect us from a threat from the sky, because Ukraine is one of the biggest country in the world and in Europe. I'm so sorry. And it's not like Israel, for example, and it's impossible to protect, technically impossible to protect all our territory from missiles and air strikes without the support of NATO. And that's why for now, and our military, our main request to the West, to the free world, is to help us to protect our civilians, to protect our cities, because Russian destroying our cities just totally. Mariupol, Kharkiv, Chernihiv, they are Russian-speaking cities, so they are acting like terrorists. And Putin,
I know, which is what's so shocking, given these are Russian speakers. I completely understand that. You're obviously fighting in Kiev. There seems to be a lot of confidence now coming from the government that there's absolutely no chance of Kiev falling to the Russians. Is that correct?
Kiev will not fall, and we will not give up, of course. I think that it's impossible to take Kiev, but it's possible to use chemical weapons, for example, to kill all of us. It's possible to kill nuclear weapons to kill all of us. It's possible to...
Is that your biggest fear now, Alexei?
I'm sorry?
Is your biggest fear now the use of a chemical weapon or the use of a nuclear bomb?
Look, of course, these weapons can kill like dozens, thousands of people the one moment, maybe even more. But and this is the only way how to take control over Kiev, just to destroy it totally. And we already understand that Putin is crazy, and he's like a Hitler of the 21st century. He is acting exactly like Hitler acted against Poland in 1939. His goal is to solve so-called Ukrainian question. And we remember that Hitler wanted to solve Jewish question at the same time. So for Putin is absolutely necessary to destroy at least a big part of our Ukrainian nation, to make sure that we will not continue our existence of our state. And his main threat is a democracy as a concept, because for the Putin, for Kremlin, democracy is a main threat. He is afraid of free people.
Alexei, it's interesting to hear you make the comparison to Hitler. Of course, one of Putin's main talking points, one of his main pieces of propaganda, is that he had to invade because of neo-Nazis in Ukraine. Can you just respond to that?
It's a total fake, friends. It's a total fake. I'm a Russian-speaking person. I have never seen Nazi in Ukraine. There are no radical political parties in our parliament. Ukraine is a democracy. Ukraine is a free European country, peaceful European country. Ukraine never attacked, never invaded neighbors or some other countries. Ukraine voluntarily 30 years ago, something like 30 years ago, during 90s, voluntarily gave up our nuclear third biggest nuclear potential nuclear weapons to Russia, actually, by the guarantees of UK, of United States, of the biggest powers in the world, of our sovereignty and territorial integrity. And we are betrayed now. So we actually punished, Ukraine is punished for its goodwill, for its peaceful behavior. And now we're paying a huge price because the Western leaders, the Western world is scared. You are scared of Putin. We understand this, but our main message is, guys, friends, all the world, all the leaders of the free world, don't be scared. Putin is weak. Putin is living in a fake world, fake Russian world. And the only way to stop him is to show him a power, because Russians recognize only power. If not, he will continue the spiral of violence, and we will have the Third World War. Now it's already the biggest full-scale war after the Second World War. But it's only a start, friends. It's only a start. He will not stop on Ukraine. He will go further to Moldova. He will go further to Georgia, to Baltic countries. He already controlled and captured Belarus, because Belarus is not an independent state anymore.
No, indeed.
Lukashenko is not the president of Belarus.
We hear your warning loudly. I also have to say you're certainly someone who isn't scared, and the bravery of the Ukrainian people blows my mind on a daily basis. That was Oleksiy Honcharuk, former Ukrainian Prime Minister. He was the country's youngest PM. He served under President Zelensky. He has now taken up arms and is fighting to defend his country. Coming up, as protests mar Will's and Kate's goodwill tour of Jamaica, should Britain pay the country reparations to appease its rabid Republicans? Nigel Farage gives his verdict soon. But next, as Gordon Ramsay comes under fire for saying that he can't stand the Cornish, should derogatory comments about national minorities be considered hate crimes? Will two of Cornwall's most influential voices and political commentator Richard Taylor debate that next in The Clash? But I want to know what you think. Dan at gbnews.uk, tweet me at gbnews, and we've got our poll running there too. The results coming up after the break.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Sharon Davies and Zuby are still to come, as is Nigel Farage. But it's time now for The Clash. Gordon Ramsay once again making headlines after declaring his out-and-out hatred for Cornish people during a BBC radio interview.
I'd go back down to the beautiful Cornish coast and get that line-caught sea bass and do that with a little light crushed potatoes. And trust me, I absolutely love Cornwall. It's just the Cornish I can't stand.
He said that, not me! He said that, not me! OK, so we've upset one part of the nation already, Gordon.
I'm sorry. I promise I did mean it.
The TV chef, who fell out with his Cornish neighbours after absconding to his second home there at the height of the pandemic, has infuriated local leaders with his comments. Dick Cole, a councillor and head of a Cornish nationalist party, pointed out that Ramsay wouldn't dare make such a, quote, shocking public statement about other national or ethnic groups. So the spat has prompted calls for prejudice or hostility against national minorities, a status bestowed on the Cornish in 2014, giving them the same protections as the Scottish, Welsh and Irish, to be made a hate crime. Currently, only incidents perceived to be motivated by a victim's race or ethnicity, disability, religion or belief, sexual orientation or transgender identity can be categorised as such. But what do you think? Should derogatory comments about national minorities be considered hate crimes too? Dan at gbnews.uk is my email. Tweet me at gbnews. We've got our poll. But to argue their views now help you make your mind up, I'm joined by Welsh political commentator Richard Taylor, the chief executive of Visit Cornwall, Malcolm Bell, and the mayor of Ncaa, one of Cornwall's most popular tourist spots, Louis Gardner. So, look, Malcolm Bell, you're furious with Gordon Ramsay, aren't you? You think this is essentially a hate crime.
I think anybody who describes a derogatory name one group of people, let alone a recognised national minority, is really out of date with the way the world is today. I mean, there's always people you might not like in any world of life, but you wouldn't turn round. I wouldn't turn round and say, I can't stand the Scots and he comes from Scotland. I love some Scots. There's probably some other ones I'm not so keen on. It's that whole thing of sweeping one group of people and basically denigrating them, which is absolutely appalling.
Louis, this is a really interesting one for you because you're obviously the mayor of Ncaa, but I believe you're not Cornish originally, and you actually get some negativity towards you because of that.
No, I wasn't born in Cornwall. I was born and brought up in the northeast of England, moved here sort of 20 years ago as part of my naval career, and I've made a home in Ncaa for the last sort of 10 years. I absolutely deplore the comments by Gordon Ramsay. I think they were unnecessary, but Gordon Ramsay's made a career out of making headlines, and funny old thing, he's got a new show coming up shortly, and we're all here talking about him. I have nothing but respect for the Cornish. I think they are the warmest, most friendly people that I've ever met, which is why I've chosen to make my home here. But the respect's got to go two ways. You know, if you respect the Cornish, they respect you back in return. And I think the comments from Mr. Ramsay were unwelcome, uncalled for, and just not what we're about down here in Cornwall.
Richard Taylor, you think this is all woke madness, and the idea that you might be criticised for being Welsh doesn't constitute a hate crime?
Absolutely, Dan. I get criticised quite heavily for being Welsh. You know, we get called all sorts being Welsh, as you know. I think this is a tongue-in-cheek statement that he's made. And may I just say for the record, I love Cornwall and I love Cornish people, especially their pasties, right? So I just want to get that on the record. But I think in the context of what we're talking about here, to talk about this as an offensive statement to the point of a hate crime or something of that nature is just ridiculous. You know, we're going to get offended by what people say. We might not like what they've got to say. There are many people who say they don't like the Scots, they don't like the Welsh, but it's said sometimes in a jovial way. I don't think Gordon Ramsay was really serious about hating Cornish people. I mean, he's got a second home there, for goodness sake. And if he's saying those kinds of things, then he's not going to have a warm welcome walking the streets of Truro or Ncaa, I'm sure.
But Richard, you wouldn't say it about another ethnic group, would you? I mean, you know what this woke world is like. If that was a major celebrity saying that about a part of the world where the residents were predominantly non-white, there would be a move to cancel Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah, we've already got that in the hate crime bill, of course. You know, when it comes against race, religion, or sex, we get that. But on this occasion, I mean, I listened to the radio interview this afternoon, and I thought to myself, he hasn't really said anything to cause a whole furore. And, you know, I know your guests are on with me tonight as well, and they've got different opinions because they're passionate about Cornwall, as I am about Wales. But listen, people have said things about Wales. They've called us cheap bleep and all kinds of things, right? We don't get offended by it. We just go, you know what? If you don't like us, then shove off back to England. You know,
it's just jealousy.
And
look,
you know?
Malcolm Bell, look, I'm never one to defend Gordon Ramsay, but I'm just trying to get into his head. It seems like he was pretty annoyed with the Cornish because of the way they treated him during the pandemic. I mean, you've got to be honest. You didn't want anyone coming in for a period. You wanted to become your own little closed-off world.
No, I think the thing with Gordon Ramsay is he came down here after it was supposed to be locked down. That was the problem. He then went cycling all over when he shouldn't have done it. He then showed his sort of dislike of people criticising we were here. What I'd love Gordon to do is we have a housing crisis in Cornwall. He has 2 second homes in Cornwall. Wouldn't it be great if he bought a couple of houses for some up-and-coming chefs or hospitality staff to rent in? So come to Cornwall, enjoy Cornwall, but join us. Don't use us and then don't criticise us. That's all we're asking. I think that's why people are offended. This lovely house he's got. He's got the money where he could help.
We just saw it. Looks beautiful.
Get in Cornwall and stop criticising us and join us properly.
Louis Gardner, how do the residents of Ncaa feel about Mr. Ramsay? Is he welcome?
Well, I think what I've seen on social media is that many people are very, very disappointed about what he said. You know, he benefits from having a second home here. He spends a lot of time in the area. So to say something like that's pretty foolish. And there's been quite a backlash locally on social media about his comments. But we're very welcoming here in Ncaa. No one takes real offence, and to any sort of comments like that, everyone is welcome. Like I said before, all we do is we ask that when you come to Cornwall, if you're a day visitor or for longer, or you move here, treat the people who live here all year round with respect.
Richard Taylor, it would be a real issue for Scots, wouldn't it, if the idea of national identity became a hate crime? Because look at what all of the Sturgeon lovers say about the English on a daily basis. Anglophobia is out of control in Scotland.
Well, yeah, you've got her up north in Scotland making all kinds of comments about the English. We've got it here with the Welsh, you know, the Welsh government even making comments about Westminster in England. So this idea of national identity, and I know Cornwall's got this thing about its own identity, and it's been devolved a lot of areas, and I know what the guys are doing. No doubt, it's great work in the community. But look, on this occasion, he said something, and it was in an interview. I just think it's a storm in a teacup. We shouldn't get carried away. And no doubt there's some of the guys in Cornwall will probably experience. It's not going to help his career down there, but I don't think he's that bothered, to be quite honest with you, knowing exactly the kind of money he's earning and what he's doing as a career. He's not going to be bothered too much by it. But I can understand how people are offended by it. But personally, I wouldn't be offended by someone saying, no, you know, I don't like the Welsh. I've heard it so many times before, and I go, well, that's great. You don't really know Wales then, do you? You don't really get on with life. You know, there's bigger things to be worried about than being offended over someone saying they don't like you or they hate you. I mean, people need to get out there. Look, we live in free speech, Dan, don't we? Free speech. Let people say it. You know, let them say it. Get offended. Don't worry about it.
I love it. Bring it on. I mean, come on, say what you want, I say. And all you do is make people like Ramsay himself look bad. He's not a nice man. We know he's not a nice man. He's the opposite of a nice man. I've got lots of words in my head. But he's exposed himself this week. Fascinating debate. That was Welsh political commentator Richard Taylor, the chief executive of Visit Cornwall, Malcolm Bell, and the mayor of Ncaa, one of Cornwall's most popular tourist spots, Louis Gardner. Thank you all. So who do you agree with? Well, Vincent on Twitter says no, but you should be careful categorising everybody from somewhere as the same. Gordon Ramsay wouldn't like it if someone said the same about the Scottish or Tom Jones about the Welsh. DB says the Cornish are the first to admit that they hate the English. People need to be able to get as good as they give. We are going soft. And from Chantal, well, I'm Cornish. Oh, good. And I can't stand Gordon Ramsay. So all square, I guess. We've been running a poll on this on Twitter, of course. This is our most overwhelming result this week. As it stands, just 10% of you agree that offensive comments made about national minorities are a hate crime. 90% of you say, get over it. Coming up, as Boris formulates an action plan to stop Russia with other NATO leaders, should the West entertain the idea of aiding Putin's opponents who want to assassinate him? My superstar panel return to debate that in the media buzz after 10. But next, after a royal tour filled with controversy, should Britain pay Jamaica reparations to appease its Republicans? Nigel Farage gives his verdict straight after the break.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. What the Farage time now, and Nigel Farage is with me. Nigel, I was talking about this at the top of the show. Prince William, of course, didn't apologise for British colonialism and slavery, but I thought he went a long way to addressing a lot of the concerns of the Jamaican Republicans. But of course, Nigel, because the BLM-inspired Meghan-hating folk who just want to rain on the parade of William and Kate, it wasn't enough for them.
Well, Dan, I know your comments have, been excitable on Twitter today. I mean, look, what we've had, of course, is I feel a bit sorry for William and Kate really being put in this position, demands for reparations, and a whole narrative here that Meghan and Harry have helped to create. I mean, of that there is no doubt at all. But I tell you what gets me down about this. It is the feeling amongst so many commentators in the UK that somehow slavery is a uniquely British thing. We were the only people in the world that ever did it. White British people enslaved black people and sent them across to the Caribbean and the Americas. Now look, none of us today think what happened those centuries back was a good thing. We even don't think public executions are a good thing. There are so many things that happened years ago that we wouldn't, approve of in any way at all. But the thought we should pay reparations, well, hold on a minute, because there was something called the Barbary Pirates. Now, I know that any young people watching this won't know, because they won't have been taught this at all through our education system, but a recent report from Ohio University in America suggests that up to 1.25 million people from Sicily right up the west coast of Spain and France and into Cornwall, getting back to your previous debate that you had before the break, Wales, Ireland, 1.25 million white slaves were taken by North Africans from countries that we now know as Algeria and Libya. And by the way, folks, it wasn't just the Brits doing slave trade, the rest of Europe were doing slave trade. So let's get a sense of perspective. And what's really brought all this on for me isn't just the royal visit to Jamaica. It's Tulse Hill in South London. Now, I was at school at Dulwich, a mile up the road. They're going to rename Tulse Hill. They're going to cancel Tulse Hill. They're going to get rid of dozens of road names. I've got to be honest with you. I've known Tulse Hill for over 50 years. I didn't know, I mean, ignorant me, I didn't even know it was based on a guy called Sir William Tulse, who made his money, you know, out of the slave trade. But we can't go on pretending this is a purely British, a purely white thing. We need some sense of perspective and balance in this argument. And above all, what we should say is whatever was wrong in the past, it was the British that first realised what a moral wrong it was, abolished it, and then spent decades on the high seas driving out the slave trade at the cost of thousands of Royal Navy sailors' lives. So please, folks, can we have a sense of perspective? And if reparations are to be paid, well, Libya, Egypt, Algeria, you owe us a huge amount of money. And the Cornish will be very, very pleased. They won't even need Gordon Ramsay anymore.
But it would never end. I mean, it was interesting, Nigel. Dominique Samuels on our Superstar panel tonight. She is a Brit with Jamaican heritage. And she said her concern about this, and I found it fascinating, actually, is that the current government of Jamaica is wanting to wallpaper all of the social problems, all of the other issues in their society today by focusing on this historic issue of reparations. And I think she's right, you know, because actually the Jamaican Prime Minister should be thinking a bit more about how to turn his country around.
Yes, I mean, you know, if the Jamaican Prime Minister wants to continue with this narrative of what he sees as being historic wrongs, and they probably are in many ways, that is giving victimhood status to an entire country.
Yeah.
And that of itself is a very negative emotion. Tell someone they're a victim and they'll feel down. Tell someone they're a champion and they can overcome things and succeed in the future. And you know what? They might just do very, very well. So I find the whole thing a negative narrative, but there's something bigger going on here, and it's not being commented on, Dan, but I'm going to mention it now very briefly. And we'll come back to it in the weeks to come. Take Barbados. Barbados recently got rid of the Queen as head of state. Why? Well, China is the answer. China are doing their best through loans, money and investments to break the British link with the Commonwealth. It's happening. We've seen it with the Chagos Islands and that row that's going on there. We've seen it in Barbados. Jamaica, I don't think China's the influence there, but there is a big attempt out there to downgrade the English-speaking peoples of the world and this remarkable alliance. And there are lots and lots of people in Jamaica whose granddads flew in Bomber Command in World War II. There is an amazing link between our nations, and it's being poisoned by many, many people. And that is a terrible shame.
Very good point. Very good point. Nigel, I just want to come back to this idea that's been propagated by the left-wing media, by BLM in particular, that the British royal family is racist. And yes, I did get a lot of criticism today because I blamed Meghan Markle for some of this, not for all of it, but for some of it. And I stand by that, Nigel, because her interview with Oprah Winfrey is being used by some of the main activists for reparations and a republic in Jamaica right now. But what I found particularly unsavoury, Nigel, was the fact that the BLM movement tried to use this picture of William and Kate greeting fans behind a wire fence when Raheem Sterling had done exactly the same thing a few moments earlier and no one mentioned it.
Yeah, well, look, you know, the contradictions, the untruths of Meghan Markle know no bounds. And the fact that Prince Harry himself is happy for his family to suffer some of the injustice that comes from this, the injustice that comes from this, is so wrong. But the truth of it is, as you can see, Kate and Wills are becoming global megastars. One dares to say Kate more than Wills, somewhat reminiscent of what was going on 40 years ago with his father and with Diana. But I think we should all be very pleased and very proud that out there on the world stage, we've got a couple like this doing us such great credit. And you know, with the Queen now being effectively confined to barracks in Windsor, we need to recognise that the royal family are the most important part of soft power that we have in this world. The Commonwealth now has within it 2.3 billion people. Add to that over 300 Americans who seem to love the royal family even more than we do, and you realise just how important the monarchy is to us, our presence, our soft power in the world, and especially in post-Brexit Britain, it matters even more. And that makes, frankly, what Meghan and Harry have done nothing but totally despicable.
I agree, and I think they will lose. I think this narrative that the British royal family is racist has been pushed by the far left extremists in the US media. But actually, you're completely right. Even loads of Republicans, Nigel, in Jamaica absolutely adored William and Kate. There are about 60 protesters outside the British High Commission. It's just the fact that the media who are in the tank for Harry and Meghan in the US are trying to create a particular narrative. And I think they will lose, but we have to expose it.
Well, look, you know, the media, the mainstream media, and that includes a very large chunk of the British media, have always been ashamed of this country, of its standing, of its history, of its status, of its royal family, of its individuality, of its uniqueness. It's why they wanted us all to be parcelled and packaged up into a wonderful new European project run by bureaucrats we couldn't vote for, couldn't remove, and who were generally kicked out political failures for their own countries, such as Belgium. So, look, there's nothing surprising in any of this. And, I mean, look at Belize. The truth of it is, the Belize trip from the couple this week was a huge success. Half a dozen people turn up with placards and protest. And you would have thought the whole of Belize were in uproar at the fact that the royal family had visited. And in Barbados, who got rid of the Queen as head of state, without a referendum, did it without reference to anybody. And opinion polls show, actually, a majority of Barbadians wish that hadn't happened. So never be surprised that mainstream media wants to destroy our image, our reputation, our legacy, and our future. Do you know what? They don't like the country. They're embarrassed by us. And George Orwell got it so right in the late 1940s when he said, there's a certain type of Englishman who would rather steal from the poor box in church on a Sunday morning than stand for the national anthem. They're still there. They still exist. But the Brexit vote proved that the silent majority are sound, decent, upright, honest, patriotic people. And I believe in increasing numbers, they're going to become fans of GB News too.
What a note to end on. Inspiring. Nigel Farage, have a great weekend. We'll speak next week. It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton, and tonight, are we witnessing the death of women's sport? Olympic swimmer Sharon Davies dives into the Leah Thomas controversy that's dividing the world and has seen her receive death threats. That unmissable and important interview coming up at 10:20. Plus, as Chancellor Rishi Sunak gutlessly refuses to answer what a woman is, how do the London woke elite answer the question?
Trying to find out what a woman is. Can you help? But should she be allowed to compete against women?
No. He was born a man.
Elsewhere on the show, as Boris rallies NATO support for Ukraine at a Brussels summit, should the West entertain the idea of aiding Putin's opponents who want to assassinate him? My Superstar panel returns shortly to debate that tonight. The Conservative commentator Dominique Samuels, the Tory London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey and the author and journalist Amy Ncaa. It's 2 years since lockdown began, but why won't those responsible for that grave mistake acknowledge its role in crippling our economy and contributing to the cost of living crisis? Well, social media activist Zuby tackles that in Uncancelled at 10:40. As Justin Trudeau obliviously denounces Putin at an EU summit, his own COVID totalitarianism hasn't gone unnoticed among MEPs.
To you, these may be liberal methods. For many citizens of the world, it is a dictatorship of the worst kind.
Ah, go them! More of Trudeau's political pasting later. Also, the COVID fast continues in Scotland as a TV audience is forced to stay muzzled while panellists are mask-free. I'm going to show you that footage later. So is Scheming Sturgeon trying to keep the pandemic going by continuing the requirement for masks in schools after Easter? We'll debate that at 10:30 plus. You'll get a look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages, hot off the press. That's coming up, and just before the end of the show, so do stay out with us. A brand new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass will be revealed. Before all of that, though, the news headlines with Tamsin Roberts.
Dan, thank you. Good evening from the GB newsroom. NATO and G7 leaders are increasing lethal aid to Ukraine. Speaking after emergency meetings in Brussels, the Prime Minister Boris Johnson said military kit will be provided in the quantity and quality needed so the country can defend itself against Russia.
Ukraine is not alone. We stand with the people of Kiev, of Mariupol, of Lviv and Donetsk, and as President Zelensky has said himself, the people of Ukraine will prevail, and Putin must fail, and he will fail.
Russia's Federal Security Service has been linked with a historic global campaign targeting critical IT systems and national infrastructure in Europe, the US and Asia. That's according to the Foreign Office, with Foreign Secretary Liz Truss describing the incidents as dangerous and calculated, and proof, she says, that Vladimir Putin is willing to risk lives to sow division. The National Cyber Security Centre says it's almost certain the spy agency's Centre 16 carried out the attacks. P&O Ferries has admitted breaking the law when it sacked 800 workers without notice last week. Chief Executive Peter Hebblethwaite acknowledged trade unions should have been consulted first when he was questioned by MPs. He also told them the new crews are being paid below the UK's minimum wage on international routes, but he insists it's legal.
We thought long and hard about the routes to this, and we did consider every single option available to us, and we concluded that every single option available to us would result in the closure of P&O.
Self-isolation and mandatory masks in shops and on public transport are to be scrapped in Wales. First Minister Mark Drakeford will announce the changes tomorrow, and they'll come into effect on Monday. Jurors have been shown footage of the moment the man accused of murdering Sir David Amess was arrested. Prosecutors say 26-year-old Ali Harbi Ali stabbed the MP in his constituency in Essex last October. Ali, who denies preparing terrorist acts and murder, was tackled to the ground by two plainclothes officers.
Get it down! We got him. Right, search him. Right, mate, at the moment you're under arrest for murder, all right? If you'd like to say anything, it may harm your defence. If you do not register when mentioned, something which you later on in court, anything you do say may be given as evidence. Do you understand me?
Donald Trump is suing his former opponent in the presidential election, Hillary Clinton. The ex-US president claims she and several others, including former British spy Christopher Steele, tried to rig the 2016 vote. In a lawsuit filed in Florida, Mr. Trump alleges there was a conspiracy to spread a false narrative that he was colluding with Russia to win the election. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now let's get straight back to Dan.
Tomorrow's News Tonight now in our Media Buzz. First front pages are in. The Metro lead with the headline, "Kiss It Goodbye, Parties Over for Putin's Pal." The 26-year-old stepdaughter of Russia's foreign minister, who owns a £4.4 million London pad, is one of 64 oligarchs being hit with UK sanctions. Foreign Secretary Liz Truss says these oligarchs are complicit in the murders of millions of Ukrainian citizens. In the Daily Telegraph, US President Joe Biden, we'll be speaking more about this shortly, says if Putin uses chemical weapons against Ukraine, then it will prompt a trigger response in kind. His remarks came as he met NATO, G7 and European leaders at a series of emergency summits in Brussels. Love this image too of Queen Elizabeth arriving at the White Drawing Room in Windsor Castle. This is to view artefacts from a new craftwork company which is commemorating its 70th anniversary. But at the moment, it just makes us feel relieved and happy and content, and like we can sleep easily at night if we see the Queen looking happy and healthy. And she certainly does that, walking stick in hand, but glowing. So lovely to see. My superstar panel back with me now, the political commentator Dominique Samuels, the former Tory London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, and the author and broadcaster Amy Ncaa. Now, Prime Minister Boris Johnson and President Biden met with key allies, as I just mentioned, at a NATO summit today as they rallied further support for Ukraine. President Zelensky addressed the summit from Kiev and pleaded with the military alliance to arm his troops with jets and tanks, as he warned Putin's army won't stop in Ukraine.
I'm sure you understand that Russia does not intend to stop in Ukraine. It wants to go further, against eastern members of NATO, the Baltic states and Poland for sure. Will NATO then stop thinking about it, stop worrying about how Russia will react?
Boris rebuffed Zelensky's request for extra armour, though, saying it was logistically difficult. Instead, he pledged to double the UK's lethal aid, including 6,000 more missiles. The PM then struck a defiant tone as he lauded the international unity against Putin's invasion.
I've rarely seen our nations more united in recent years than we are now. Putin's failure in Ukraine is vital for the peace and prosperity of all of us, and his barbaric invasion has galvanised the international community into collective action.
Biden lamented the carnage caused by Russia and warned that NATO would strike back proportionately if chemical weapons were used. But he was also forced to address questions about his ability to even lead the US at the moment at all.
I don't think you'll find any European leader who thinks that I am not up to the job. And I mean that sincerely. It's not like, whoa.
They're just not telling you to your face, Biden, let me tell you. Now, the unity on display in Brussels comes as Putin strikes an increasingly isolated figure at home as well as abroad, and a whistleblower at the heart of Russian intelligence has claimed that the risk of a coup is growing due to the war. No wonder so many think that assassinating the Russian president is the only way to end the bloodshed and want the West to aid those trying to take him out. But the Times columnist Max Hastings warns that plotting to assassinate Putin is beneath us, saying the Russian leader may want President Zelensky dead, but democracies diminish themselves by targeting heads of state. So should the West aid those trying to assassinate Putin, or is Max Hastings right that it risks our reputation, Amy Ncaa?
I think Max Hastings is absolutely right. Firstly, it's against international law anyway. And really, I think what needs to happen is Putin's a war criminal now, so he needs to be captured and tried.
How's that going to happen?
Well, in the same way,
how are we going to capture him?
How are we going to assassinate him? Arguably, proportionally, an assassination has more likelihood of killing more people in the surrounding area than a capture.
I'm not advocating to assassinate him. I just wonder how you think we're going to capture him.
Well, I wonder how we're going to assassinate him as well. So I think both those are quite tricky.
I mean, I think there would be more of a possibility, Sean, that if the West were to assist the Russian whistleblowers, maybe there would be a chance to assassinate him. There's more chance of that anyway.
Look, Max Hastings is right. It diminishes us as a democracy if we go around assassinating people. And who are we to pick the new Russian leader? And of course, history would demonstrate when we get involved in regime change, it eventually goes very, very, very wrong. So we should keep out of it. If we want to defeat Putin, it's a case of defeating him through the argument. It's a case of keeping him out of Ukraine, letting Ukraine remain as a sovereign nation. Assassinating him just turns us into a James Bond villain of a nation.
And if we did that,
that, who knows what could happen? Unless we have some sort of control over who replaces Putin, you could even create a power vacuum that would lead to an even worse replacement who will use the ill feeling about him being assassinated to galvanise more support against the West. And you could even see basically suicidal moves, as Zelensky has claimed, for example, invading NATO countries in Eastern Europe. This would make the situation worse.
It would be a serious error because we would justify his behaviour. Imagine we tried to assassinate him and it didn't happen. He could say, you see, these people think they can kill us at will. If we did assassinate him, the power vacuum that Dominique said, there's no telling how that would work out. And of course, it then means any even slightly aggressive manoeuvre could be answered by war, because that leader will be able to say, these people are in the business of choosing your leader and assassinating people.
And who would take advantage of that? China, Iran, countries in the Middle East who obviously have ill feeling towards the West because of, you know, Afghanistan and Iraq. Bad idea.
But that's not to say we can't rule out the possibility of a domestic assassination. There's assassination attempts come from all of... I've just been handed this story of a potential assassination by Vladimir Putin's own daughter.
Well...
But that's none of our business.
Yeah, that's
if
another
someone
story.
Inside Russia takes that very drastic step, they will have to deal with it. They'll have to deal with the consequences.
Good on them. But given, by the way, you can't get within about 50 feet of Putin and his security is so strong, it would have to be a real insider.
Yeah.
Dominic, you seem quite concerned by these comments from Biden today responding to the prospect of chemical warfare. So when asked what would prompt a military response if there was a Kremlin-orchestrated chemical attack, Biden said it would trigger a response in kind. We would respond if he uses it, meaning chemical weapons. The nature of the response would depend on the nature of the use. I mean, can you not argue this is actually what many folk have been wanting Biden to do, talk a little bit tougher? He's clearly not going to put US troops on the ground or anything like that. But the problem is that previously, Dominique, he's ruled everything out, which makes him look completely weak.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's common sense because you can't say, Putin, you could do whatever you like. The USA is not going to do anything. That doesn't make any real strategic sense. But I think for me, when I heard that, can we get some specifics? What do you mean we're going to respond in kind?
But that was the point, though, right? He can't give specifics. He can't give specifics because, in reality, the very strong likelihood is he will not respond.
Exactly, which means that...
He shouldn't give specifics. And so there's two things. Everybody's saying, you know, wade in America. But hold on a second. America wading means a completely different scale of war. We have to leave some room for this to be resolved diplomatically. America wading in would stop that. And when it talks about responding...
Have Putin think that he can unleash
But that's the point. He does it... Putin's not afraid of us. So him saying we'll do this, that and the other isn't the point. The point is he's just putting a line in the sand. We're creating a limit here, an international limit. The history of chemical weapons is abhorrent. And he's saying if you step over that line, we will come in automatically. He needs to make that point to warn Putin not to do it. But he also needs to do it in a way that Putin doesn't think, well, they're coming to get me. I need to go up now.
Well, let's see if it works. Now, I went to great lengths on this show to expose the heinous actions of Liberal darling turned tyrant Justin Trudeau when he last month tried to silence the freedom convoys peacefully protesting COVID restrictions. The Canadian Prime Minister attempted once again to smear those brave folk at a sparsely attended speech at the European Union this week.
We saw anti-vaccine and anti-government protests devolve into illegal occupations of our communities and blockades of our borders. The leaders of those convoys were effective in turning citizens with real anxieties against the system best suited to allay those concerns.
But while his propaganda may have worked on lefties and the liberal media, MEPs weren't standing for it. German politicians Christine Anderson and Bernard Zimniok eviscerated Trudeau, while Croatia's representative Mislav Kolakuša had the guts to brand Trudeau a dictator to his face.
Prime Minister who openly admires the Chinese basic dictatorship, who tramples on fundamental rights by persecuting and criminalizing his own citizens as terrorists just because they dared to stand up to his perverted concept of democracy, should not be allowed to speak in this House at all. Mr. Trudeau, you are a disgrace for any democracy. Please spare us your presence. Thank you.
Clearly the values of democracy are being despised by this individual. Let us not give someone like this any speaking time in this House of Democracy.
Canada, once a symbol of the modern world, has become a symbol of civil rights violations under your quasi-liberal boot in recent months. We watched how you trample women with horses, how you block the bank accounts of single parents. To you, these may be liberal methods. For many citizens of the world, it is a dictatorship of the worst kind.
Now that was a trucking good watch. If only some of our politicians would be so brave as to stand up to Mr. Trudeau in that manner. Dominic Samuel, Sean Bailey, Amy Ncaa, do stand by because my superstar panel will be back as we ask whether Nicola Sturgeon is trying to keep the pandemic going by continuing to muzzle her people. And next, she's received death threats from activists supporting trans athlete Lia Thomas. But Olympic swimmer Sharon Davies won't be intimidated as she battles to save women's sport. Very brave woman joins me right after the break.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Now, after trans swimmer Lia Thomas thrashed her female competitors at the weekend, serious questions now being raised about whether the very survival of women's sport is under threat. The 22-year-old University of Pennsylvania swimmer became the first transgender athlete to win the Ncaa title in the women's 500-yard freestyle, going from 554th in the event as a man to first as a woman. Olympic swimming medalist Sharon Davies has campaigned tirelessly on the protection of female athletes. And overnight, she revealed she's been subjected to horrific death threats because, as she put it, she has presented evidence-based facts on the unfairness of male inclusion in women's sport,
which is sex-based discrimination. But the brave and defiant Olympian says she will not stop bringing the actual facts into the light or be bullied into silence. And I'm delighted to say Sharon joins me now. Sharon, first off, I just find it absolutely appalling that you have been subjected to death threats for simply standing up for female athletes. I mean, that shows you how toxic this debate has become, right?
It has become a very toxic debate. I have to say, just recently, though, you know, it feels like the tide is turning. I've been saying the same things for 3 years, and I've been trying to stop, you know, females from losing their places and losing their medals. But it seems as if we've almost had to have this happen before people can see how ridiculous it really is. So I think that now we can actually say, you know, look, this is what we thought was going to happen, and it is happening. And I think the vast majority of people don't want that. They do want fair sport for females. So hopefully something will happen.
I think you're absolutely right, by the way, when it comes to public opinion. But I'm much more worried, Sharon, about our sporting bodies, because just yesterday the Daily Telegraph revealed that British cycling are now considering changing their rules to allow a trans athlete to compete in the female category at the upcoming Commonwealth Games in Birmingham.
Yeah, well, they're not actually changing their rules. What the rules that they have are very, very bad, weak rules. They're exactly the same rules as the NCAAs had last week, which is literally 1 year's reduced testosterone to 10 nanomole. Now, if I started to swim tomorrow morning and had 10 nanomoles of testosterone in my blood system, I would receive a 4-year ban instantly. That's how ridiculous it is. And it certainly doesn't mitigate any, you know, biological advantage through going through male puberty. So at the moment, it's so stacked against female athletes to be able to compete on a level playing field. And you're talking about such wonderful names as you know, Dame Laura Kenny and Katie Archibald. You know, these are superstars inside of British cycling that won't be able to live with someone that has a male advantage. So I just hope that this again brings it to everyone's attention how silly it is and how we can get the rules changed. But I find it so sad that we have to throw women under the bus to do what we already biologically know.
Big time. Can you just explain, Sharon, exactly what physical advantages Lia Thomas has?
Well, I won't pick just on Lia because it's not really her fault. You know, I'm
or any trans swimmer, let's say.
So I believe anyone should be able to identify however they like. However, I do believe in fair sport for both sexes. And there are two sexes, that's male or female. However you identify, that's up to you. But biological sexes, there are just two. So there's a difference of between 10 and 30% in elite sport. 10% being probably middle distance running, 30% being things like weightlifting, anything that's extremely explosive, and also things like contact sports. So, for example, a male and a female of exactly the same height and weight, a male will hit 160% harder than a female. So not only is this unfair, it's incredibly dangerous going forward in contact sports as well, you know, and things like rugby, taekwondo, you know, lots of different things. So there's a safety aspect to it as well.
And Sharon, obviously one thing that some sporting bodies are looking at is extending the amount of time that trans athletes have to be on hormone therapy. But according to what you're saying, that wouldn't undo the natural advantages that they have as a result of going through male puberty.
Yeah, it's not just me. I mean, there are 14 peer-reviewed studies out there and very, very famous, you know, sports scientists and biologists that are saying this. You know, big studies that have come out of big universities to show that reducing testosterone, you know, even up to 3 years takes only about 3 or 4% off. And when you're giving away 10% or even 30%, you know, that's not going to make enough of a difference. So I think it's all about creating categories that are welcoming for transgender athletes. And no one ever talks about trans men. You know, trans men are biological females that are on testosterone. They're not actually allowed to compete in the female category because they're breaking the rules. But at the moment, no one even considers where they go because they're of no threat to men's sport whatsoever. So it's just women that, you know, men are going to be winning the men's category and they're also going to be winning the women's category. So what's left for women? You know, that's... And it's just wrong. You know, it's not about any form of transphobia. It's just about fairness for people, really. A nice, respectful, honest debate that's based on science is really the only thing that I've ever been asking for.
Well, indeed. And I would say that the Lia Thomas situation actually adds to transphobia, if anything. This isn't good for the trans community, is it? And I've interviewed Caitlyn Jenner on this show who says exactly that. And I feel like surely we should listen to Caitlyn. She's the world's most famous trans woman, but she's an athlete and she knows the physical disparities that you point out.
Yeah, and then that's the point, really. I think we need to defer to people that understand this subject. You know, this isn't a sort of a cultural thing where anyone has a problem with someone that chooses to identify as transgender. This is about just straightforward fairness and biology. And feelings don't do sport. You know, our bodies do sport. And that's what's so relative. So I know I'm glad that we're getting the right sort of coverage now. I'm glad that people can see what we've been saying for a long time. I still find it very difficult that our athletes are gagged. Our competing athletes are not allowed to speak. Most of the coaches and the sports staff are not allowed to speak. And I get almost daily telephone calls from competing athletes in very, very upset.
And did you see, Sharon, that one of the women who lost her place because of Leah Thomas in the Ncaa competition was actually booted off Twitter for complaining about it. So that is the concern, isn't it? That there's this conspiracy of silence around this issue, which big tech actually helps to control.
Yeah, and big pharmacy as well. There's an awful lot of money that comes in from big pharmacy to lobby on this particular subject. You know, and it's quite scary, really, where it all comes from. I mean, you just, like with most things, Dan, you just follow the money.
Very true. So what's the solution, Sharon? Because what seems so complicated for me as someone who doesn't know sport intimately like you do, is that different sports and different sporting bodies are able to set their own rules. Does the government need to get involved in this and actually start creating a legal framework that all sporting bodies have to go through, or is there another solution?
I think the government could certainly get involved, and I was a little bit heartened yesterday with what Borough said in Parliament. But I think the government has a part to play in defining what a woman is. You know, if we start losing our language, if we lose the ability to explain what categories we are, what we are, how on earth do we protect it? So that's terribly important that that's protected, and maybe that is a government job. I think the sporting bodies are making movements, and I'm very proud to say that actually FINA, which is the swimming body, have got some very strong rules that they're intending to bring out. And also our World Coaching Association, 22,000 coaches across the world have come together and said they want to protect female sport in swimming. So I think if we can have one brave association across the world take a stand to protect, you know, female athletes, a lot of the others will follow. But it's that first brave association that has to do it.
Well, look, Sharon, do not let those anonymous trolls bring you down, because you're speaking for the majority on this, and it's incredibly important work, because for people who love female sport, and I know you do, I certainly do, this really is something that is so critical.
It is. For me, the passion comes from the fact that for 20 years, the IOC did not protect women's sport when I was competing. You know, and they let people like me down that lost to an East German doping program. Yeah. But they also let all those young East Germans down as well, you know, who many of them have actually died. So I have no faith in the IOC whatsoever. They do not pick countries that have good human rights histories. They do not, you know, penalise Russia when they're back doing a drug state program again. They literally follow the money, and only 4% of the revenue that comes from the IOC ever goes to the athletes, 4%, which is just ridiculous. So I think that, you know, if we can get the governing bodies to stand up and have a bit of backbone, then sport will be saved.
Indeed. Olympic silver medalist. But it should have been a gold, Sharon, as you point out, if it was a fair system. Sharon Davies, thank you so much. Now, coming up, 2 years on from the first lockdown, why won't the figures responsible admit the true costs of this grave mistake? Social media activist Zubi is uncancelled soon. But next, we all know the COVID crisis has served Nicola Sturgeon well politically. So is that why she's trying to keep the pandemic going by muzzling her people? My superstar panel return to debate that next. Plus, you'll get a first look at more of tomorrow's front pages, so do not go anywhere.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Let's return to tomorrow's news tonight now in our media buzz. So we've got lots of front pages in now. The Guardian leads with Biden's warning to Putin that NATO would respond to any chemical attack. Also on the front page, Chancellor Rishi Sunak is facing a backlash over his mini-budget's failure to shield Britain's poorest families from the cost of living crisis. The Independent also picks this up, reporting that 500,000 children will be plunged into poverty as low and middle income households become, quote, painfully squeezed. The Daily Express lays out to its readers why Britain must act to end this despair, with case studies of some of the country's most hard-up citizens. It's interesting, actually, because the Daily Express is the one newspaper that is usually in lockstep with this administration. The Times leads on Biden's threat to Russia, running a photo of the president giving his best tough guy look. Don't think he quite pulled that off. Certainly not going to send Putin fleeing in terror would be my suggestion. The Duchess of Cambridge dazzles on her tour of Jamaica, says The Sun, while referencing Prince William's nod to Bob Marley in his military parade speech. The paper goes on to declare the beaming pair touched hearts in the country despite a backdrop of anti-royal protests. And from the Daily Mail, the Kremlin says Boris is their #1 enemy. This comes after the Prime Minister told NATO to increase military and economic support for Ukraine. The US President has also intensified the pressure on the Kremlin, saying NATO will respond in kind if Russia used chemical weapons against Ukraine. I love this picture of the Queen. I just adore it. And I love the Daily Mail headline too. Portrait of a radiant Queen determined to attend her beloved Philip's memorial. I so hope she gets there. I think it's next week, is it, or coming up anyway. And the Daily Star leads on what they think is the real burning issue of the day, a terrible weather-related catch-22. So here you go. 30-degree heat wave coming, according to the paper, but it will apparently cause such bad pollution that vulnerable people are being urged to stay indoors. Yep, there we go. Weather lockdowns, folk. I told you they were coming, and here they are, according to the Daily Star. How blooming ridiculous. More on the Media Buzz now with tonight's superstar panel, the political commentator Dominique Samuels, the former Tory London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, and the author and broadcaster Amy Ncaa. Now, last night on BBC Scotland's political discussion show, Debate Night, COVID hypocrisy was in full view. Look at this. As the co-leader of the Scottish Greens, Lorna Slater, was allowed to prattle on unmuzzled, while suffering members of the audience sat wearing cloth
masks. Oh my goodness, it makes me so angry, and I have to thank one of my amazing army of loyal Dan Wootton Tonight viewers who flagged that to me, because of course I was on air while this COVID hypocrisy was going on. And let me just tell you quickly, you can follow me on Twitter now at Dan Wootton, but I have a special club running. It's in the Twitter communities section, and it's where you can flag this type of thing to me. I'll chat to you before the show and after the show, because I so appreciate the fact that you are my eyes and ears on the ground often. And it's now been 2 years since the anniversary of the first national lockdown, but for the devolved nations, COVID hysteria won't be ending just yet. Earlier this week, the First Minister of Wales, Mark Drakeford, quietly pushed back the expiration date for emergency COVID powers for another 6 months. That's sinister, isn't it? And as we saw in that depressing clip, scheming Nicola Sturgeon still forcing Scots to wear face masks in indoor public places until at least April the 4th. Yesterday, the Scottish Government also made the ridiculous announcement, this makes me so mad, that secondary school students will have to keep wearing masks until after the Easter holidays. So, with Sturgeon imposing measures that are clearly no longer necessary, why is she so hell-bent on keeping the pandemic going, Dominique Samuels?
I think largely because it keeps her relevant, and it also makes her look like, you know, she's being seen to take the pandemic seriously. She's being seen to do something different to Boris Johnson.
But it's never worked, has it? It's never worked because COVID rates in Scotland are way higher than the rest of the UK. And by the way, I'm not celebrating that by any means, but it just annoys me that she has created a completely false impression about her success of controlling the virus. She hasn't controlled the virus ever.
It's a false narrative, and you can look at that when you see the figures. And all this is going to do is disrupt people's education and carry on the psychological feeling of being in a state of emergency. And yes, I'm aware COVID cases are rising. But what kind of COVID cases are they? Are they severe? I'm aware that hospitalisations are rising in Scotland specifically. But how many people are in Scotland are being treated just for COVID?
And the point is, when it comes to masks, though, the fact that they've been wearing masks for weeks and weeks and weeks, and we haven't, yet they have the huge hospital cases. I mean, Amy, you know I adore you, but something you said on this that I was showing earlier just made me absolutely fume. You say, we could learn from Sturgeon's response to COVID. Have you lost the plot?
OK. Nicola Sturgeon doesn't keep the pandemic going. The virus keeps the pandemic going. Currently, 1 in 20 people have coronavirus in the UK. I have a son at school. I have noticed staff absences completely across the board in the last couple of weeks. And what disrupts children's education isn't wearing a mask, it's being off school, and schools will have to close if we don't continue to do everything we can to mitigate the virus and keep it out of classrooms and stop it.
OK, but the cloth masks
do
very little to stop you from getting the virus.
Well, we don't want to get into that debate.
The virus itself
that is the debate,
stopping people.
Sean, surely that is the debate, because Sturgeon says we should follow the science. Well, the science is now very categorical that if you're talking about cloth masks, I'm not talking about the ridiculous N90... whatever they're called, masks, 95, whatever, which no one wants to wear because they're so horrible. I'm talking about those ridiculous, dirty cloth masks. They don't work.
Look, the issue here is following science. If she says we should follow science, she's not doing as she has said. I personally think she's doing it to look like she's busy, to distract from the fact that she's run Scotland really quite terribly for a number of years now.
Very good point.
And if you keep a group of people in a state of emergency, they look to their leaders. Somebody on his sofa, not a million miles away, used the words to remain relevant. Of course she needs to remain relevant, because she's coming to the time where it will end that she can just blame the government for everything. At some point, Scots are going to start to say, OK, but you're in charge. What have you done? And she'll point back to this. And the point is this, if she really wants to be consistent, she needs to look at the science, because she said she would, and it doesn't look like she is. And I say that as someone who was quite happy to wear his mask. If it meant that other people safe or they felt...
but it doesn't.
Yeah, well, even if they just felt more comfortable, I was happy to wear the mask.
But then we're allowing a false sense of security.
There is a time when the masks must come to an end, because as a nation, we have to learn to live with COVID. Because it isn't about how many people are getting affected. It's about the effect of that. We don't test for the flu. We don't test for the common cold. We live with it.
And shame on that Green politician, that Scottish Green politician who thinks she can sit there unmuzzled while all of those poor souls in the audience have their faces covered. It's revolting.
It's almost becoming a symbol of, you know, status
Power.
and hierarchy.
Your level in society.
The important people and
if you're famous, you don't need to wear a mask. If you're a staff member or a member of the public, you do.
The reason in the classrooms that they want
shame on this woman
to wear masks
and that man
is simply to keep schools open and protect teachers.
Yeah, but it's not going
to. It's an illusion. It's a lie.
I mean, look at the facts, Amy. Doesn't work. So you might feel better saying that. You might feel better saying, oh, I'm wearing a mask to protect people. It doesn't.
I just want my son's school to stay open.
Yeah, but a mask isn't going to do that.
Rules.
Mask isn't going to do that.
That's what
the Chancellor may be great at PR too, maybe slightly questionable at economics after his spring budget, but he's certainly god-awful when it comes to defining what a woman is. I've got to play you his embarrassing dithering when Talk Radio's Julia Hartley-Brewer asked him the simple question, what is a woman, this morning?
Well, I thought the Prime Minister answered this brilliantly in Prime Minister's Question Times, in Prime Minister's Questions this week, and I fully agree with him.
And so what is your definition of a woman?
As I said, I would exactly agree with what the Prime Minister said at Prime Minister's Question Time. I thought he answered the question very well.
An adult human female?
Sorry, Julia, as I said, I thought the Prime Minister answered the question brilliantly. And
he thought he answered it brilliantly. So what were the words that he said that you agree with, Chancellor?
Well, I think if you look at the full thing that he said on Wednesday, he answered the question brilliantly, and I would agree with every word that he said.
Following that cringe performance from Rishi, I sent our reporter Ben Leo to the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine and other universities in the capital, where he wanted to find out if woke Brits could do any better than silly Rishi.
You define a woman?
I don't know.
We're just trying to establish what a woman is.
I mean, anybody who says they are a woman.
Would you think it's fair if Anthony Joshua, the boxer, the big bustling boxer, one day identified as a woman and then started boxing against females?
Well, if he does that, that kind of makes him a
Is that not what Leah Thomas is doing in America?
I don't know.
We're trying to find out what a woman is. Can you help? But should she be allowed to compete against women?
No. He was born a man.
Is it a simple question or is it complicated?
It should be a simple question.
What's the answer? Is a trans woman a woman?
Yes, I think so. What's a woman? Not a man that's become a woman. That's really naughty, isn't it?
Are you going to get cancelled if you say?
Oh, I don't care if I get cancelled.
Go you! And by the way, that gutsy woman at the end was actually a university lecturer. So I'll be listening to her instead of her Gen Z students with a hell of a lot to learn about the world. Now, Dominic Samuels, Sean Bailey, Amy Ncaa, do stand by because coming up, my superstar panel are going to be nominating for the last Greatest Britain and Union Jackass of the Week. But next, it's been 2 years since lockdown, so when are those responsible going to fess up to the economic and social damage they have wrought? Social media activist Zuby investigates in Uncancelled. First, though, very quick look at what's coming up on Monday's show.
Coming up on Dan Wootton tonight, despite having our civil liberties snatched away in the pandemic, does the West still take freedom for granted? Social media activist and singer Flint Bedrock's motto is freedom is never given, it's won. He'll be joining me live. Plus, GB News star Neil Oliver and positive Professor Carol Sikora tackle the headlines with their trademark passion and reason, and I'll break down the day's biggest stories with my superstar panel. The Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, senior reporter at the iNewspaper Benjamin Butterworth, and the social commentator Esther Kraku. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
But it's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Now, yesterday marked 2 years since the decision to lock down the country, shutter the economy and criminalise the very
human need to socialise. Without any cost-benefit analysis of such a decision, the effects have been devastating, but still those behind the move refuse to own up to their grave mistakes. And the evidence keeps on coming. A new Ipsos poll reveals the catastrophic legacy of paranoia and fear that lingers to this day, with half of Brits surveyed saying they would support the reintroduction of restrictions if a new variant emerged. Well, as we mark this unhappy anniversary, activist and freedom fighter Zuby wants those behind the decision to hold their hands up, take the blame, and finally put an end to this madness. He joins me now. And Zuby, you're completely right, because one thing that has been infuriating me all week, and I know you agree on this, is that all of those people who warned long shutdowns, money printing, COVID policies would batter the economy, as you say, and lead to inflation, were accused of being selfish, wanting to kill grandma and putting money over human lives. But we were right, right?
Yeah, it's been very frustrating, Dan, and it's the least satisfactory and least enjoyable I told you so ever, I think.
Totally.
And this goes so far beyond the UK as well. We're talking about the majority of countries in the entire Western world for sure, but I think the entirety of countries in the world in general just fell into this domino effect after seeing the lockdowns in China, and decided to totally jettison the concept of human rights and civil liberty and freedom, all under the guise of protecting people, keeping people safe, with no cost-benefit analysis, no consideration of what's important, and no consideration of the health, physical, mental health, financial ramifications, inflation, so many things, social development, effect on children. There have been so many issues that have come out of the lockdowns and other restrictive measures. And honestly, it's so mind-boggling how few people are willing to even accept or entertain the idea that this was not necessary and it was not effective at stopping the spread of the virus, and also that it caused more harm than it did good. And there have been many studies that have come out this year even showing that type of damage.
Zuby, what's so frustrating for me is that the governments that spread all of this fear sort of want to keep it in reserve. And you could see by those poll results that I mentioned in the intro, a lot of people still remain terrified. They still remain trapped in this bubble of disinformation that lockdowns actually work. Nicola Sturgeon maintaining the absolute farce of forcing school children to wear masks. Isn't it on these people who got it so wrong now to actually come out and stop the fear?
It is, and this is the problem. This has been the problem from the very beginning, is that this whole thing is politicized. It's been political from the very beginning. And it's understandable to some degree. In the face of a new danger, in the face of a threat, governments, political leaders cannot be seen to be doing nothing. And the truth is, sometimes doing something and doing something drastic can cause far more problems than either doing nothing or doing something that is more calm and moderated. And what was happening was, like I said, there was this domino effect in different countries. We remember early on, it started out in China. China did lockdowns. I believe that Italy was the first country in Europe to do lockdowns. Initially, the UK was never going to do lockdowns. They were going to take the Sweden approach and keep things open and be much more moderated with it. But there was all this pressure coming from certain people in the media, coming from the political class. And then, of course, the citizens start demanding this. They start demanding this drastic action to be taken. And all throughout this, because there is this fear, nobody is thinking, does this make sense? Is this effective? You can say the same for masks. You can say the same for lockdowns. You can say the same for standing 6 feet apart and the plastic barriers, the nonsense rules in restaurants. There are so many different measures. And at no point has someone actually sat down and really thought, okay, is this working? Is this effective? Indeed. What are the pros and cons here?
And Zubi, quite the opposite, actually, which is what upsets me. Yesterday, Rishi Sunak was almost celebrating lockdown. This is 2 years since lockdown, as if it's a really good thing, as if we should be happy that the government locked us down. And that's when I realised, whoa, the narrative has become so topsy-turvy and out of control.
Mm-hmm. And this is a big problem as well because of how long it went on for. From the very beginning, one of my biggest concerns wasn't just that I don't believe a government has a right to do this in a liberal country, but also the longer this goes on for, the more people are going to get used to it. People are now emotionally bonded to their masks. They're emotionally bonded to this concept of lockdown, et cetera. It's set this terrible precedent, which has totally inverted the way that our societies are supposed to function, where simple things like, I mean, I'm happy that the UK has been, at least England, has been dropping a lot of these rules and restrictions. But if you travel around the world and go to different countries, there are still places where it feels like May 2020. They're still going 100% with all of this madness. And at this stage in the game, I mean, I can give people a little bit of leeway, but 2 years on from this situation, it is truly astonishing just how much this is affecting people.
Well, Zubi, thank you for continuing to fight for freedom, and we'll do so on this show always too. Zubi will speak again next week. Thank you so much. But it's time now to reveal today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. My superstar panel back with me. Dominique Samuels, who are you nominating as your Greatest Britain tonight?
This is my honorary Greatest Britain, seeing as they're not British, and it's Emma Wayant. She came second to transgender swimmer Leah Thomas in the NCAA 500 yards women freestyle. She was recognised as the winner by Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, and I completely agree with it. I think that's the real winner that we should be celebrating.
Sean Bailey, your nominee for Greatest Britain.
Margaret Atwood, the best-selling author who's condemned this banning of books in schools as a culture war gone crazy. It reminds you of the kind of things they do in communist countries, banning literature that they don't believe in.
And Amy Nicole, your nominee.
Well, speaking of literature people don't believe in, but I believe in, my nomination this week is the Queen for her upcoming Vogue cover. Have we got a picture of it? No, we haven't, but it's amazing. She's going to cover Vogue next month.
Oh, there she is. Look at that.
Oh, I love that. To celebrate her jubilee.
Well, I love that. So I'm going to go for the Queen for that reason. The fact that she's on the cover of Vogue, but also because those pictures of the Queen smiling, looking great on the front page of the newspapers have cheered me up no end. So Thursday's Greatest Britain is the Queen. Union Jackass time now. Dominique Samuels, your nominee.
Mine is Twitter. They've been embroiled in another censorship scandal, this time permanently deleting, suspending Tucker Carlson, the host of Fox News' satirical site, The Babylon Bee, for referring to the American Health Secretary, Rachel Levine, as Man of the Year, and they refused to delete it, so they were permanently suspended and censored. I mean, it's the truth. Rachel is a biological man, so you shouldn't be deleted for stating biological facts.
Sean Bailey, your nominee for Union Jackass.
My nominee for Union Jackass is P&O Ferries for sacking 800 staff over Zoom with no warning. I'm with the PM on this. They should face some kind of legal ramification for this. It's disgusting.
And Amy Nicole, your nominee for for Union Jackass.
To follow on from Sean, really, mine is the CEO of P&O, Peter Hebblethwaite.
And how original.
For receiving £350,000 a year and paying his employees just £5.50 an hour.
Wow.
Thanks to getting around things by maritime law over UK law. Firing and rehiring for £5.50 an hour.
Well, I'm actually going to go with Dominique Samuels on this and Twitter because I watched what Tucker Carlson had to say about this ban. It was absolutely ludicrous. And as he says, the only way that Twitter will reinstate accounts like that is if they delete the tweet. So Twitter is actually trying to control the narrative on this trans issue. They will end up losing because, as Sharon Davies says, this is about common sense and it's about fairness and scientific reality. Dominique Samuels, Sean Bailey
Amy, Ncaa, fabulous superstar panel. Thank you so much for your company all week. I'm, of course, back again on Monday from 9 p.m. Mark Dolan will be here for the next 3 nights at 9 p.m. Headliners is next, though. Good night.
Good evening. Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Tomorrow will be remarkably similar to today. Basically dry and sunny almost across the board. And again, a bit of a chilly start. High pressure is continuing to dominate our weather. It's been slowly moving back in and now it's here. It's going to last not just through Friday, but even into the weekend. So plenty more sunshine to be had. A little bit misty and murky overnight. We've seen a bit more cloud today across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Even 1 or 2 showers here through the evening, but they are fading away. The mist and fog could thicken up across Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland, parts of eastern England could also turn a little misty, and certainly it will be pretty chilly once more. Temperatures there in Birmingham close to freezing at 1 Celsius, 2 or 3 in Aberdeen, and certainly rural areas will start a little frosty on Friday morning, but plenty of sunshine to come during Friday. Mist and fog could take a while to clear from Northern Ireland. There will be thicker cloud across Shetland and a little bit of rain is likely here. And in the afternoon, the small chance of the odd shower for Northern Ireland, Wales and Northern England. But for most, it's sunny and warm. Look at those temperatures, 17 in Hull, 18 in Birmingham. 19, 20 is possible in 1 or 2 places. It will be a little cooler on Friday on the coast of East Anglia and Kent, with a bit more of a breeze picking up here, and that will strengthen further along the south coast as we head into the weekend. Still that weather front bringing some cloud and patchy drizzle across the Northern Isles into Saturday morning as well. And again, we could see some mist and fog patches forming, and it will be a chilly start to the weekend. But the sun will soon get to work and lift those temperatures. Plenty of sunshine during Saturday. Staying fairly cloudy, perhaps across Shetland, and some coast may be a little misty and cool, but generally temperatures widely again into the mid or even high teens in that strengthening sunshine. More to come on Sunday as well. It's looking dry, fine and sunny. Yes, the mornings will be chilly this weekend, but it's going to be warm in the afternoons.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube. You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News